Follow on from yesterday's meditation, a little experiment, 11 books, reading page 3 and page 44 to 48. Urban Shaman, Biology of Belief, Reiki and the 7 chakras, the power of neurodiversity, accessing the healing power of the vagus nerve, shaking medicine, the Toltec way, the guide to personal transformation, Mudras for modern life, the complete guide to the yin yoga, voluntary controls and human energy systems. Just 44 to 48. The gain has to be greater than the pain. The athlete wants the pleasure of winning. The mountain climber wants the pleasure of reaching the top. The salesperson wants the pleasure of more money. The scientist wants the pleasure of solving a problem. The student may just want the pleasure of finishing. The point is that all behavior, habits, and action are influenced by the motivation toward pleasure. In order to operate its memory function and engage its motivation, the coup uses its primary tool of sensation. According to this concept, all memory is kinesthetic, or body-related. All pleasure and pain is as well, and all experience, even of emotions and ideas, produces physical sensations. As an urban shaman, you will want to develop and fine-tune this important tool of sensation, or sensory awareness. The part of you that can do this is the subject of the next section. The mind aspect, Lono. The Lono is that part of yourself which is consciously aware of internal and external input, of memories, thoughts, ideas, imaginings, intuitions, hunches, and inspirations, as well as sensory impressions of sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, depth, movement, pressure, time, and others. It hangs out on the border, so to speak, between the inner and outer worlds. The primary function of the Lono is decision-making. Since the process of decision-making includes such things as attention, intent, choosing, and interpretation, I'll discuss each in turn with a lot of overlapping. One of the decisions that the Lono has to make frequently is where to focus attention. There are so many things to be aware of in any given moment that an attempt to be aware of them all at once would soon reduce one to total ineffectiveness. Total awareness requires inaction, because action requires exclusion. To do any one thing means not to do a lot of things. To increase awareness of one thing means to decrease awareness of a lot of other things. So part of the Lono's role is to make decisions that result in selective awareness in order to increase the individual skill or defectiveness. In other words, Lono decides what is important and what is not, and attention follows the decision. Most such decisions are based on Ku's memory pattern of pleasure and pain, but Lono may have a multitude of other reasons for attributing importance based on other kinds of decisions. When attention is focused on something important by Lono standards, the focus might be narrow or broad, depending on how much of the potential awareness is considered important. Exploring awareness. Find a small object to look at, about 10 or more feet away from you. While keeping your attention centered on the object, allow your awareness to expand around it to include other objects above, below, and to the sides of it. Now look at the first object more closely and discover some detail about its appearance. In this case, the importance was implied by the directions of the experiment itself. When you first directed your attention to the object of focus, most everything else in your awareness was dimmed. Then you expanded your focus to increase your awareness. Finally, you will note that when your attention was drawn to a detail about the first object, your awareness of most everything else dimmed again. This experiment simply illustrates how importance operates and how flexible attention is. Intent is a kind of decision-making that directs awareness as well as activity. It is a powerful way to manage your coup, with tremendous effects on health, happiness, and success when used properly. Management theory recognizes three main styles of operation: authoritarian, democratic, and laissez-faire. These also happen to describe the three main ways that people deal with their own coup. To make our discussion more clear, we'll call them controlling, cooperative, and uncontrolled styles. When you intend to walk across the room, the intention is followed by awareness, which is followed by action. A controlling style of coup managed will involve the loner constantly monitoring and correcting the coup to make sure it doesn't do anything wrong. The usual effect of such control is stiff and awkward movement, or at worst, clumsy and spastic movement. Know that one well. If there is any movement at all. The cooperative style involves the lono holding the intent and trusting the coup to do what it already knows how to do. The usual effect of this is a smooth movement, or at best, movement that is fluid and graceful. The uncontrolled style usually results in never getting to the other side of the room at all, because too many pleasurable or additional important things distract the attention. When you're speaking to someone with the intention of expressing something definite, the coup searches its memory, and in a miraculous fashion that no one can yet explain, it vibrates the vocal cords and moves the jaw, tongue, and lips in such a way that more or less meaningful sounds are produced. A controlling lono interferes with the process by trying to make sure that the right words are said in the right way, and usually creates havoc in the form of halting speech with a lot of ers, or ya, your nose, or even stuttering. The cooperative lono holds the intent and lets the coup do its thing, which often produces spontaneous humour and unexpectedly good insights or phrases. The uncontrolling lono lets the coup wander off the subject a lot or even speak gibberish. What the coup knows, it knows well, and that includes everything from how to heal itself to how to perform skills it has learned. I heard not long ago that hang gliders are designed to fly perfectly every time. The only accidents in hang gliding are caused by over-control on the part of fearful human beings. As we shall see shortly, it is the lono that generates fear. The lono's conscious mind and Q's subconscious. The Q is very much like a perfectly designed hang glider. Over-controlled, it will not function properly. Under cooperative guidance, it will go and do whatever you want. Without direction, it will go wherever the currents of life take it. Choosing is what most people think of as decision-making. Choosing is making a decision to turn your attention in one direction rather than another, or to do one thing rather than another. The actual doing is done by the Q. Many people experience great difficulty in making such decisions. and they usually say that they are afraid of making the wrong decision and having things turn out wrong because of it. What they are really afraid of is either being disappointed or receiving disapproval. Well, first of all, no one can make a wrong decision about the future, because a present decision does not create a future event. Present decisions can only create present events. Future events are created by future decisions, or rather, decisions made when the future is a present moment experience. If two people living in St. Louis, Missouri, one a positive thinker and one a negative thinker, are both making a decision about whether to move to Honolulu or New York, and they both choose Honolulu, the high likelihood is that the positive thinker will have a positive experience and the negative thinker will have a negative experience. There is also a high likelihood, unless they have read this book, that each will praise or blame the decision about the move, depending on their experience. In fact, each had chosen New York instead, the situation would have been the same. A decision does not make the future turn out a certain way, but your internal dialogue with yourself does. But that's then the same with your negative or positive thinker, I suppose. But you can't just be a positive thinker and neglect the negative. You have to take on the whole board. I like a positive sandwich and turning every negative into positive, because you can get a positive out of every negative, no matter how challenging it is. A decision does not make the future turn out a certain way. It is how you continue to think after making a decision that makes the future turn out the way it does. As for disappointment, this is nothing more than a decision to feel bad about an outcome. And not making a decision because you are afraid of being disappointed is like saying that you are afraid you might make a decision to feel bad in the future, regardless of the outcome. Or that you are afraid the outcome might not be what you want it to be. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty silly to me. It's like not getting out of bed because you might decide to feel unhappy about something, or because everything might not go according to plan. As we'll see, the decision about unhappiness has nothing to do with events. And I almost hate to tell you this, things rarely go according to plan. If your thinking is right, they often go better. In terms of choosing what to focus on or what to do, then it really doesn't matter what you choose. Some things you choose might be easier than others, but that has to do with existing cue memory and habits rather than what is chosen. Much more important than such choices are the decisions you make about interpreting experience. Interpretation is a decision about the meaning or validity of experience. This kind of decision sets up patterns of expectation and filtering that have great bearing on future experience. Interpretation is done either by evaluation or analysis. Evaluation is basically a decision that something is good or bad, right or wrong, while analysis is a decision that something is or isn't. When you evaluate an employee's performance, you look for things to fault or to praise. You make decisions about which aspects of his or her performance are bad and which are good. When you analyse an employee's performance, you make decisions about effectiveness and efficiency. A set goal is either achieved within a given time period or it isn't. Once you make a value judgment with your Lono about effectiveness or efficiency, you are out of analysis and into evaluation. The difference is quite important for clear thinking because evaluation usually generates emotional responses of happiness, fear, or anger, while pure analysis does not. This is because goodness stimulates expectation patterns of pleasure, approval, acceptance, and badness stimulates expectation patterns of pain, disapproval, rejection. More mere existence only stimulates interest or indifference based on decision patterns of importance. I spoke of the primary motivation of the coup being pleasure, which explains a lot of human behaviour. Even more behaviour can be explained by the primary motivation of the Lono, which is order. Order doesn't necessarily mean neatness, although some Lonos may interpret it that way. It has more to do with rules, categories, and understanding. That's the end of page 48. Open the mouth. Oh, too much lemon. It's for the reflexes. The biology of belief. Is there page 3 in this one? I think maybe. Page 3. After I reached the 10th question, each subsequent answer was followed by agonising groans. The highest score in the class was 10 correct answers, followed by several students who answered 7 correctly. With guesswork, most of the rest scored at least 1 or 2 correct answers. When I looked up at the class, I was greeted with frozen, shell-shocked fears. When I looked up at the class, I was greeted with frozen, shell-shocked faces. The strivers found themselves behind the big 8 ball. With more than half a semester behind them, they had to start the course all over again. A dark gloom overcame the students, most of whom were already treading water in their other very demanding medical school courses. Within moments, their gloom had turned into quiet despair. In profound silence, I looked out over the students and they looked back at me. I experienced an internal ache. The class collectively resembled one of those Greenpeace pictures of wide-eyed baby seals just before heartless fur traders clubbed them to death. Oh. My heart wowed. Perhaps the salt air and sweet scents had already made me more magnanimous. In any case, unexpectedly, I found myself announcing that I would make it my personal commitment to see that every student was fully prepared for the final exam, if they would commit to providing matching efforts. When they realised I was truly committed in their success, I could see the lights flash on in their previously panicked eyes. Feeling like an embattled coach revving up the team for the big game, I told them I thought they were every bit as intelligent as the students I taught in the States. I told them I believed their stateside peers were simply more proficient at rote memorization, the quality that enabled them to score better in the medical college admissions tests. I also tried very hard to convince them that histology and cell biology are not intellectually difficult courses. I explained that in all of its elegance, nature employs very simple operating principles. Rather than just memorizing facts and figures, I promised that they were going to gain an understanding of cells, because I present simple principles on top of simple principles. I offered to provide additional night lectures, which would tax their stamina after their already long lecture and lab-packed days. The students were pumped up after my 10-minute prep talk. When the period ended, they bolted from the classroom, snorting fire, determined they would not be beaten by the system. Oh, that's a good ending to page 3. We will not be beaten by the system. We will catalyse change with the Gandhi quantum ripple effect. Page 44. It's got a picture. Environmental signal. Big arrow down. Regulatory proteins. Big arrow down. DNA. Big arrow down. RNA. Big arrow down. Protein. And then little arrows all the way back up again. Might be able to see it. Might not. You can go back towards it. Whatever. Trevor. If ever. Whenever. Primacy of environment. The new science reveals that the information that controls biology starts with environmental signals that, in turn, control the activity of regulatory proteins on the DNA. Regulatory proteins direct the activity of genes. The DNA, RNA, and protein functions are the same as described in the primary of DNA chart. Note, the flow of information is no longer unidirectional. In the 1960s, Howard Temin challenged the central dogma with experiments that revealed RNA could go against the predicted flow of information and rewrite the DNA program. There we go, it's not your genes, guys. Originally ridiculed for his hearsay, Temin later won a Nobel Prize for describing reverse transcriptase, the molecular mechanism by which RNA can rewrite the genetic code. Reverse transcriptase is now notorious, for it is used by the AIDS virus RNA to commandeer the infected cell's DNA. It is also now known that epigenetic changes in the DNA molecule, such as adding or removing methyl chemical groups. We take some of them for our supplements. Influence the binding of regulatory proteins. Proteins must also be able to buck the predicted flow of information, since protein antibodies in immune cells are involved with changing the DNA in the cells that synthesize them. The size of the arrows indicating information flow are intentionally not the same. They are tight restrictions on the reverse flow of information, a design that would prevent radical changes to the cell's genome. That was that little bit underneath I read. Yeah, can't see that very well. How do you get there? How do you get that sleeve off? You need an environment signal to spur the sleeve. Hello, beautiful. Coming in. You coming in? Come on. There you go, darling. Well done. You right? Yay. You need an environmental signal to spur the sleeve protein to change shape, i.e. detach from the DNA's double helix, allowing the gene to be read. Once the DNA is uncovered, the cell makes a copy of the exposed gene. As a result of the gene, As a result, the activity of the gene is controlled by the presence or absence of the ensleeving proteins, which are in turn controlled by environmental signals. The story of epigenetic control is the story of how environmental signals can't do that. The story of epigenetic control is the story of how environmental signals control the activity of genes. It is now clear that the primacy of DNA chart described earlier is outmoded. The revised scheme of information flow should not be called the primacy of the environment. The new, more sophisticated flow of information in biology starts with an environmental signal, then goes to a regulatory protein, and only then goes to DNA, RNA, and the end result, a protein. There's lots of proteins in the body. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a connective tissue disorder to do with the collagen protein. The science of epigenetics has also made it clear that there are two mechanisms by which organisms pass on hereditary information. Those two mechanisms provide a way for scientists to study both the contribution of nature, genes, and the contribution of nurture, epigenetic mechanisms. In human behaviour, if you only focus on the DNA blueprints, as scientists have been doing for decades, the influence of the environment is impossible to fathom. When you build a building, it never always looks like the blueprints. There's always stuff that needs changing. Let's present an analogy. Let's present an analogy that hopefully will make the relationship between epigenetic and genetic mechanisms clearer. Are you old enough to remember the days when television programming stopped after midnight? After the normal programming signed off, a test pattern would appear on the screen. Most test patterns looked like a dartboard with a bullseye in the middle, similar to the one pictured on the following page. Think of the pattern of the test screen as the pattern encoded by a given gene. Say the one for brown eyes. The dials and switches of the TV fine-tune the test screen by allowing you to turn it on and off and modulate a number of characteristics, including volume, colour, hue. I thought hue was colour. Contrast, brightness, and vertical and horizontal holds. By adjusting the dials, you can alter the appearance of the pattern on the screen, while not actually changing the original broadcast pattern. This is precisely the role of regulatory proteins. Studies of protein synthesis reveal that epigenetic dials can create 2,000 or more variations of proteins from the same gene blueprint. Bray 2003 and Schumacher et al. 2000. So the picture's got TV screens and there's a little bit written underneath. In this epigenetic analogy, hold on, I'll show you the picture first in a second. So we're talking that one. In this epigenetic analogy, the test pattern on the screen represents the genetic code program, while the TV's controls can change the appearance of the pattern, B and C. They do not change the original pattern of the broadcast, i.e. the gene. Epigenetic control modifies the readout of a gene without changing the DNA code. So there's the picture again. Parental life experiences shape their genetic character. Parental life experiences shape their children's genetic character. We now know that the environmentally influenced fine-tuning described above can be passed on from generation to generation. A landmark Duke University study published in August 1st, 2003, issue of Molecular and Cellular Biology, found that an enriched environment can even override genetic mutations in mice. Waterland and Jertel 2003. In the study, scientists looked at the effect of dietary supplements on pregnant mice with the abnormal agouti gene. Agouti mice have yellow coats and are extremely obese, which predisposes them to cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. Agouti sisters, 1-year-old female genetically identical Agouti mice. Sun-time, yay! Maternal methyl donor supplementation shifts coat colour of the offspring from yellow to brown and reduces the incidence of obesity, diabetes, and cancer. Photo courtesy of Jertel and Waterman, just again so you can see. In the experiment, one group of yellow obese and agouti mothers received methyl group rich supplements available in health food stores, folic acid, vitamin B12, betaine, and choline. Methyl rich supplements were chosen because I think we've done well then at choosing our supplements for EDS. Shh. Methyl-rich supplements were chosen because a number of studies have shown that the methyl chemical group is involved with epigenetic modifications. When methyl groups attach to a gene's DNA, it changes the way regulatory chromosomal proteins bind to the DNA molecule. If the proteins bind too tightly to the gene, the protein sleeve cannot be removed and the gene cannot be read. Methylating DNA can silence or modify gene activity. This time the headlines, "Diet trumps genes," were accurate. The mothers who got the methyl group rich supplements produced standard, lean, brown mice, even though their offspring had the same agouti gene as their mothers. The agouti mothers who didn't get the supplements produced yellow pups, which ate much more than the brown pups. The yellow pups wound up weighing almost twice as much as their lean, pseudo-agouti counterparts. The university's photo shown above is striking. Though the two mice are genetically identical, they are radically different in appearance. One mouse is lean and brown, and the other mouse is obese and yellow. What you can't see in the picture is that the obese mouse is diabetic, while the genetically identical counterpart is healthy. Ow! Sorry, okay. Other studies have found epigenetic mechanisms to be a factor in a variety of diseases, including cancer, cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. In fact, only 5% of cancer and cardiovascular patients can attribute their disease directly to hereditary. While the media made a big hoopla over the discovery of the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 breast cancer genes, they failed to emphasize that 95% of breast cancers are not due to inherited genes. Yes, doesn't media do a lot of that in a lot of situations? Only broadcast what it wants you to believe. The malignancies in a significant number of cancer patients are derived from environmentally induced epigenetic alterations and not defective genes. Recently, eminent scientist and physician Dean Ornish revealed that by just changing diet and lifestyle for 90 days, prostate cancer patients switched the activity of over 500 genes. That's a quarter of the 2,000. Many of their genes changes inhibited biological processes critical in the formation of their tumours. The epigenetic evidence has become so compelling that some brave scientists are even invoking the L word for Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, the much scorned evolutionist who believed that traits acquired as a result of environmental influence could be passed on. Philosopher Eva Jablonka and biologist Marion Lamb wrote in their 1995 book Epigenetic Inheritance and Evolution, the Lamarckian dimension. In recent years, molecular biology has shown In recent years, molecular biology has shown that the genome is far more fluid and responsive to the environment than previously supposed. It has also shown that information can be transmitted to descendants in ways other than through the base sequence code of DNA. We're back to where we started in this chapter, the environment. In my own work in the laboratory, I saw over and over the impact a changed environment had on the cells I was studying. But it was only at the end of my research career at Stanford that the message fully sank in. I saw that endothelial cells, which are the blood vessel lining cells as I was studying, change their structure and function depending on their environment. When, for example, I added inflammatory chemicals to the tissue culture, the endothelial cells rapidly became the equivalent of macrophages, the scavengers of the immune system. And that's the sentence finished after 48. Like that. Next one. Reiki and the 7 chakras. Is there a page 3 in this one? I don't think there is. For Maya. So we'll go to 44. 44. Oh, look at that. 44. First degree Reiki. Before practicing healing others, it is necessary to heal your own life, to bring stability into your own life. Dr. Usui. What's my yoga quote phrase been that's kept us going then? When we're flexible, strong and balanced in body, so are we in mind. And to gain so, we must gain management and regulation of our autonomic and parasympathetic breath. For many of us, a Reiki class is the first time that we have come into contact with our capacity to heal. Spat and change leg cross with leg yum pa. I know the scar tissue is all coming apart. It's all coming apart. But it's okay. We're keeping it together. Keeping it together. There we go. Beautiful scar, beautiful brain, beautiful cells, beautiful tissue. We're so sorry we neglected you for so long, body. We didn't know any better. We know better now and we're making amends. Forgive us as we forgive you. Legs. Bit of face yoga. Oh. Okay, there we go, well done. Okay, the cycles through the emotions, tears on the way, but we don't want to cry at the moment, so we'll just gently. drinking. Let me run to the other side. I think we have to push this up, don't we? Yeah. Pull this up. Down. Look the other, post the head where the glass is, but make the eyes look the other way. I know, we just need to do a little bit. You just got to shove that collarbone pattern that came up back down. You do it slowly and softly, gently. I know it's sore, but it's all good. We need to feel our way through it slowly, softly, gently. Learn presence and awareness. Clear the CPSD. And 3. Integrate. Baby integration. Okay, are we ready? To hot. Yeah. You okay? Okay. I think we're not going to be very good at this now, are we? That's okay. Too cold now. I can't win with you, can I? Can we handle it a bit? Because I think we need to, the cold will make that area contract. We need that area to contract to pull the skin down from the head and the scar and from the front through, okay? Take it slow. Okay. For many of us, a Reiki class is the first time that we have come into contact with our capacity to heal. Old concepts and beliefs about reality can be challenged during the course. What's happening now? For people to understand. I have lots of archetypal energies on a certain scale, but with dissociative identity disorder, the old personality disorder, it's the extreme end of PTSD, complex PTSD, a genius mechanism coping with childhood trauma. And if one's sense of self and personality kind of develops after the ages of 6 and 7, embeds as in adulthood, that's then when you get the adult ego. And adult ego gets confused to child ego. Our child ego is about empowerment and play, not power and control. And it's hard for each of the alternate personalities because they each have their own ego. So what's happening now is just the death of each ego. No, sorry, bad language, isn't it? Yeah. None of you are dying, are you? No. What's the right language again? Can you help me out? You're just choosing the best versions of us and the best bits of us and teaching us how to protect you better, not with our old patterns. Not killing us off. That's right, I'm not killing any of you off. I'm just integrating all healthy aspects of yous and all the unhealthy aspects. We're transitioning and changing and learning to know what they are when can't see or hear inside, and only yes, I will eventually learn your language. I'm sorry I don't understand it to help you out because you hold a lot of pain, don't you? I can feel you even if I can't understand your words. So I'm not killing you off. We're learning to integrate the healthy aspects of these alters in our heads and the neurological pathways. We like talking energy better and quantum physics. Don't like the psychology mental talk of it. So, okay, should we transition to language for their energy? Okay, so how do we word it when we word it like that? Should we close our eyes so we don't get distracted like the urban shaman book said? We just need to hold that back, don't we? Can we got tuning forks? We put them on. There is the Mindo by time. My to tell you more. Big yesterday, isn't it? Showing ourselves, being seen. What have we got again? Got the heart. 1 on 1 and 21 on 34. What's 21 on 34? The golden ratio. Oh, that's good. Golden ratio and 1 interval. Golden ratio is from the Fibonacci sequence set. It's the point of the balance. So in the language of energy, the brain has neurological networks, invisible threads of strings. Depending which colour depends on the thickness of them, and then there's nodes that join them. So the more new things one learns, the more neurological pathways are created. But then one can get too many, so one needs to get a healthy night's sleep and do meditative restful practices or whatever if one can't get sleep, so that the pruning can take place in the brain. And so that's the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. One gains new information, but one doesn't need all that new information that one gains. So it cuts half of it off. But then muscle memory, which has nothing to do with muscle memory, it's neurological pathways, is every 4 days. So if one does something at least once every 4 days, that's why better to do something twice a week than once a week, then it embeds it better, like exercising a muscle. The more you do it, repetition. So if you do it a little bit every day, it's even better. 5 minutes every day, 10 minutes every day is better than like 2 hours once a week. But it's all patterns, you see. It's all patterns. It's all patterns in the torus flow. And we feel our body in energy, not the matter, the way the energy flows. That's how we're healing it, because we've seen the pictures. We've seen the pictures of the torus flow, and we understand the lines. Water channels down, wind spirals round. Forget what the fire does. Think fire might go up, because fire burns up. We can't remember things, but if we understand it, then we remember it. That's why we don't do well at maths at university. But each network in the brain has a corresponding network in the body. So when the brain dissociates itself and separates, it does what society calls abnormal networks. But what I call, and that's the next book, Neurodiversity with the autistic brain. It's the brain trying to evolve to accommodate the new ways of life, the faster stimulation which the senses can't handle. So we have to learn how to make them handle it. We ready? Okay. Phew. For many of us, A Reiki class is the first time that we have come into contact with our capacity to heal. Old concepts and beliefs about reality can be challenged during the course, which takes place over a weekend. For this reason, when embraced, the first degree is often experienced as an awakening. A new way of seeing and feeling both ourselves and the environment around us. It is down to the individual how easily this experience is integrated. Reiki 1 is the start of a journey into the world of energy. Consequently, it can help us to let go of rigid thought forms. When did we get stars done? I don't know, maybe anywhere from 2012 to 2014 maybe. We got 3 done in a couple of years, so it might have been all 3 in a couple of years. With master then, not the master, but we've got our masters of it. Okay. Reiki 1 is the start of a journey into the world of energy. Consequently, it can help us to let go of rigid thought forms and concepts that may become obstacles to our understanding of this world. Any expectations we may have about what we are going to experience will serve only to block any true experiences that may occur. It is therefore more useful to be open and playful, letting the energy show us how to communicate with it. That's what we did, because everything we learned, like polarity therapy and the shaking medicine, that's what our body taught us from this collective consciousness stuff. And then we got the books. So like the body knows how to heal, we just have to listen to it. We know if we're not listening to it because we have a lot of pain or we project a lot of stuff outwards. And that's just our body, our subconscious, our right brain hemisphere, screaming at us to listen to it because it needs some rest and relaxation and some help and support. But for those poor people out there like us that don't know what that is and can't communicate because of the autism, because of the processing language disorder and the dyslexia, they need help and support to express themselves. And that is what I am doing this for. Those people that don't need to be sucked into societal systems ways, that is linear system thinking, and keep you rigid in a box, creating more pain for people, for individuals that need less. Written by people probably that haven't even experienced anything that they're going through. How can you write a syllabus or do anything that you've got someone else to fill in if they've not done it? That's why managers get it wrong. You need to listen to people on the shop floor, or the people actually doing the work with people or whatever, to write stuff or change stuff or do stuff. But no, it's all about the paperwork. Oh, they might sue us, so we have to have this ticked or that ticked. Can you be quiet and read the book, please? Sorry, we need to let it out. Okay, but we're going to try not to do that today, won't we? Yeah, we can do that in our own time later, yeah? Okay. But this isn't an out loud reading thing. Yeah, but it's an experiment, isn't it? Okay. The experience of first level Reiki is usually relative to the ability of the participation to let go. I have often thought it best that people know very little about what is going to take place, as it prevents them putting together some escape plan. I thought I was going to say expectation. It is our nature to stay in what is comfortable and familiar. When we receive the Reiki initiations, quite often that comfort and familiarity is called into question. This is not to say that Reiki is distressing or foreign. It's just the letting go that we may find difficult, because the subconscious doesn't want to change. Our ego doesn't want to change. The mind likes to be our master, but we will be its master, and it shall be our slave, because it makes a wonderful slave. There is a series of treatments that are learned in Reiki 1, which include the full treatment, the short treatment, and the self-treatment. These treatments are based around the chakra system and begin with the head and work their way down to the body, to the feet. By working on the higher chakras, first we induce a state of deeper mental relaxation in the recipient, akin to sleep. This is not dissimilar to the rapid eye movement, REM, period in our sleep cycle when we dream. In fact, Most people's closed eyes are highly active during a Reiki treatment, and they report seeing inner visions once the mind is in a state. It allows the body to relax and is less likely to protect itself and its issues. When introducing these treatments, I always make a point of saying they are guidelines. It is good that we learn these disciplines. Let's get that hamstring. Come on, let's get the ligaments on that right hamstring. I'm on my yoga block in here in bed. It's not a yoga block, it's a cylinder block. It's not a cylinder block because cylinders aren't. Shush up, please. Shush up, please. Attitude of gratitude, of attitude. Thank you for the funky junior box and papa. Hope, feeling hopeful. Once the mind is in this state, it allows the body to relax and is less likely to protect itself and its issues. EDS body can't relax too much. You've got to keep that balance of movement. It doesn't sublax, but we're getting there. And it's a fun, exciting dance, this shadow dance of life. Into self-empowerment in loving ourselves. When introducing these treatments, I always make a point of saying they are guidelines. It is good that we learn these disciplines, but not at the expense of our intuition. In time, we begin to instinctively know which parts of the body need treating, and we should go to them without worrying about the discipline, or if some outsider said that don't do it that way or do it this way. Trust yourself. Your body does know best, even if it says different to what the others say. It is important to listen to these clear signals from our intuition and to learn to trust them. The first degree gives us a simple and safe framework in which to explore energy healing. Once our confidence grows and we learn to feel the movements of energy as we practice these treatments, it's amazing, by the way, seriously. Who else do you know that's lived on their own and can be on their own company for this long? And if I can love my own company, know that I'm okay, trust that I'm okay. And if you're feeling that I'm not, it's something that's in you that's not okay, that's resonating with this process of healing. So just join in and feel with it and don't analyse it and breathe through it and shake and jump and dance and scream, whatever. You're in your own space, you can do whatever, it doesn't matter. Let yourself be free with expression. God, I couldn't do that in my own space even, could I? I had to go to a mental hospital to do that. Not that I deserve to be in there. If I'd been taken home, given a few hours to calm down, talk my way through, I would have realised that I needed to go in there to have someone cook for me and clean for me, because I actually couldn't physically do anything anymore and my autonomic nervous system was starting to die. But I didn't need to be taken by cops, and I didn't need to be given medication that made me lose 4 days and then go into fight-flight responses and be pinned down by 8 people. Poor people. I've had to do that once or twice, working in certain places, knowing it was wrong. I had to leave. So I've been on both sides now, and I will get my story across, because it's everyone's highest good that I've been meditating on since November solidly. That's what saved me, because I didn't have any REM sleep, because if I'd gone into REM sleep, I would have gone. So nice when the autonomic, I've got a book in the Bridges, it says it in there, that's the only reason I know this, but when you are going down, with energy work, if you bring someone's pulse rate or pressure down so low, the sign is they curl up into the fetal position. It's the energetic coil coming back in again. It's what the Kundalini energy is. When you're a baby, you grow up tall. But if you don't grow up tall because your posture's not good, and your posture may not be good because of emotional stuff that's happened or whatever, then you don't get that full expansion of the coil of the rainbow threads, the electromagnetic field, to expand outwards. So that's then either one chooses from awareness to change the patterning in the body or the mind or the emotions, whatever they can, hopefully a little bit in each one at the same time, so you don't focus one thing on too much, because if you focus one thing on too much, you'll go down that rabbit hole too much, the rabbit hole of the mind. Luckily we didn't do any of the mental books on psychology, although our Auntie Ursula left us all hers. Very smart lady. Can we read, please? Yes. Read. No idea where we are. That's what this is about. So where are we going to start? Issues. I don't want to go back to that word. We've probably done that. That's probably what triggered us. So let's start here. When introducing these treatments, I always make a point of saying, no, I've done that too, I'm sure. I'll relate this bit, let's do this bit again. Once our confidence grows and we learn to feel the movements of energy as we practice these treatments, we begin to stray from the discipline and explore the energy without the structure. If we get lost, we always have the structure to return to. Not if you don't like me, we're learning the structure, but we'll get there because we're smart. Hard, I know. Challenging, no. 2 steps forwards, 1 step back. Don't break the comfort boundaries, just expand them. When you breathe, feel yourself breathe out. No. When you breathe in, and the secondary muscles of the shoulders go up, so keep the shoulders down. Breathe in. You can see the pathways going up there. And then when you breathe out, don't go back to the start. Release a bit, but not all the way. And that's the rib cage expanding in all directions. But if you let it go back to the start, so you go 2 out and then back to the start, you're not getting anywhere. But if you go 2 out and back 1, you've expanded and you've only gone halfway back. And then you go 2 out again and back 1, and you've still expanded and gone back, but you're staying within your comfort zone. Breaking your comfort zone breaks the boundaries, and that will break the boundaries in the body eventually if you've got, a susceptible, flexible body. Be gentle and patient with oneself. Less is more. Though Reiki is a very powerful tool, I believe the first level weekend should be fun, playful, and everything should be fun and playful. When you're living from your heart, then it is. And predominantly an experiential journey into Reiki. Well, that's our life. We've tried to qualify. Shush, please. It is through direct experience that we come to know something. For this reason, special care should be taken when choosing your Reiki teacher. It is always advisable to receive a treatment from any potential master to decide if you are comfortable with their approach to healing. If so, it is likely that they will have a similar approach to teaching. The main thing is that you feel a rapport with them and your heart feels like it is expanding in their presence. Reiki is very simple, and the approach to teaching it should reflect that. Oh, there will be shoulds. There's not going to be any shoulds in our book. Shoulds is an external belief system. Place it with coulds or would be best in the moment. But sure, please. Daigar, s'il te plaît. Maintenant. Remember, I don't know. The energetic field. There we go, on the left now. Be careful with that one, please. As the light pervades the entire body, one gets attached to the body. Not if you cut off from your body to stop. Shush, please. As the light pervades the entire body, one gets attached to the body, mistakes the body for the self, and regards the world as different from oneself. Sri Ramana Gita. According to the theory studied by Dr. Usui, the surface vehicle through which we as consciousness express ourselves and interact with the physical world are made up of the physical, etheric, emotional, mental, and intuitional bodies, and the will. These 6 layers range in vibration from the dense physical through to the subtle intuitive layers. These layers are permeated by 7 main centers known as chakras, which are focal points for the transfer of ki, chi, ku, prana, mana, energy, throughout the whole system. Part of the function of this energy field is to do with the exchange of sensory input and output, our internal model and our external model, our central nervous system, our peripheral nervous system. It's all interconnected, and my website will show it how, I promise you. Not in a typical website way either, I promise you that too. God, the inspirations are flowing, so just calm down, chill out. It helps us move and function in the world by providing us with information energetically from within the realms of the mind emotion, and physicality. Nothing comes from without, it all comes from within. Depending on where the information originates, it can range in tangibility from obviously coarse to subtly fine. This interaction takes place on all levels and all directions, and the surface vehicles are the interface through which that happens. Anything that is created physically through an action carries an intention behind it. Actions speak louder than words. Which acts as the motivational force. Picture impact, 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 impact. Intention. Na 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 na. This force provides momentum and dictates the depth to which that action impacts itself in the physical world. When viewed energetically, that intention can be made up of strong beliefs and powerful emotions. When an action is supported by such powerful thought and feeling, what permeates into the physical world through the action is those thoughts and feelings. If the intention is fear-based, then the energy that is transferred through the action into the physical world is fear. So please, guys, don't put protective bubbles around yourself. Protective bubbles don't work, because that means you're acting from a place of fear. But if you put a beautiful mirror bubble and understand about vibration and energy, and how if you get over 2000 kilohertz, you can kill and break down pollution in water and all kinds of things, then those lower vibrational energies don't come in. And then you're acting from a place of love with everyone's highest good and involved. I'll enable you all to see that eventually, even though maybe my actions don't always match it, but I'll explain that too when I can, in my own time, at my own time. Conversely, if our intention is loving in nature, this will emanate from us and our actions will be infused with that love. The surface vehicles, the physical body. Our physical body is composed of solids, liquids and gases, which together make up the body system, such as the skeletal, muscular, blood, nervous, lymphatic, immune, digestive and endocrine systems. Oh. These all enable the body to function healthily on a day-to-day basis and constitute the denser of the physical functions. The key energy that flows through our energetic system determines the vitality of our physical body. A lack of energy flow reaching the physical will result in the vital functions being compromised. The endocrine system matches the positioning of the chakras and is regarded as the vehicle by which energy, ki, chi, prana, mana, is absorbed or stepped down to in the physical body and distributed through the vital organs. And basically, the whole body's tubes. You've got holes in the bones, the veins, arteries, all tubes. So once you can get out of the matter body and into the tubular body, you'll find it a lot easier. And that's the end of page 48, and then it goes on to the etheric body. I'm going to put on something because I need to go Mimi, which is a P. We put on one that we like. It's got good rhythm. The Fibonacci sequence of music's good. But then if you do the photography, the Third's law, Third's thingy-majig, that can link in with the Fibonacci sequence, because we watched something on that if you take any number from the Fibonacci sequence, take the second to the right, put them together, they make the third. This is what we're using on the crypto trading. 1, so that would be 1, 2, and rather than 3, it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, and that's on the fibers. And if you do the tap circular, because you find it hard to sleep, that regulates all your circadian rhythms internally in the body and stuff. And you can change it the other way. Wah, wah, wah. Have a play. Just what we're doing again. Go, Mimi. C'est trop. No. But I know we can't use technology very well, can we? You're not very good at it, are you? No. Well, it's okay. There's no rush. But there'll be Tina. But just lift your sit bones up and squeeze your sit bones together, and then it'll be fine. Okay, sorry. Don't apologise. Stop apologising. No, not necessary. Yes, remember. Maui. You like this one? Go for a wee. Very good rhythm to this. And if you go on YouTube, it's got all the words, and they're so cool too. You don't need to know them either. It's better for the subconscious and the mind of the program if you don't know the words. Hello. Shake it out, buzz it out. Heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. Bunch. need to put that shoulder thing on, don't I? Yes. No. Shaman, Shaman, It's nuts. It's like it's someone banging me with a hammer on my toe, but gently and softly. It's just so weird the way it's like when you listen to the tree knots and you can hear the trees make the sounds, but from the inside out. It's like that, but you're hearing it and you feel it, and it's like someone's rattling you inside. Shh. Neurodiversity. We're certainly one of them, aren't we? Okay. Might just keep you on quietly. They're very soothing. How do we? Yeah, it makes us feel good. Active mind. Active mind, active mind. 3, is there a numéro 3 in this book then? Yeah, there is. What does number 3 say to us then? Number 3, we like the starting words, the lessons. So this is the power of neurodiversity, unleashing the advantages of your differently wired brain. Authors of 7 Kinds of Smarts, Thomas Armstrong. The lessons we have learned about biodiversity and cultural and racial diversity need to be applied to the human brain. We need a new field of neurodiversity that regards human brains as the biological entities that they are and appreciates the vast natural differences that exist from one brain to another regarding sociability, learning, attention, mood, and other important mental functions. Instead of pretending that there is hidden away in a vault somewhere a perfectly normal brain to which all other brains must be compared, e.g. the rose psychiatrist's brain. I mean nothing to me. We need to admit that there is no standard brain, just as there is no standard flower or standard culture or racial group. And that, in fact, diversity among brains is just as wonderfully enriching as biodiversity and the diversity among cultures and races. We long for that day. We're going to create that day. Whatever. Our disability culture. Over the past 60 years, we've witnessed a phenomenal growth in the number of new psychiatric illnesses, resulting in our disability-plagued culture of labels. Labels, they labels, people and the things, people and the things, people and the things, things and the people. Yeah, we had to give a load of our sound fucking healing instruments away, didn't we, to adhere to that one. Oh well. People and the things. In 1952, The first edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM, of the American Psychiatric Association listed 100 categories. 100 categories of psychiatric illnesses. By 2000, this number had tripled, and they're just categories. That's not even individuals, if I've understood that right. Wow. We've become accustomed as a culture to the idea that significant segments of the population are afflicted with neurologically based disorders, such as learning disabilities, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and Asperger's syndrome, although it's all just the autistic spectrum now. Conditions that were unheard of 60 years ago. Now even newer disabilities are being considered for the next edition of the DSM, due out in 2013, including psychosis risk syndrome, temper dysregulation disorder, and mild neurocognitive disorder. So present, every kind of reach triggers, and this is obviously very influential. Because it's just forking, effing stupid. It's like the doctor, kids do bad things to get attention. Kids do good things to get attention. If you're ignored, it's even worse. Kids would rather have attention from doing bad things than being ignored. Yeah, as a teacher, one has to have high expectations of their children. But at the same time, not put pressure on them to achieve those expectations. Because if you don't have high expectations of them, they won't have anything to live up to. But they can't have the pressures or the stresses to go with that. I'm still working on this one, but I've got the Trauma-Proofing Your Kids and some other parenting books. So I will learn it, and I will teach these aspects of myself that I say, I'm going to need this. So what have we done to get through all the so-called labels that we've got, which we needed? We didn't want them, and we kept away from them for so long. We knew there was stuff there, but we didn't need them. But then we did. So we got them. And boy, it doesn't do you any favours doing the benefit system or these labels. It really knocks you down a hell of a lot more. I did it the systems way. I got all the paperwork. Did it with the autistic extremeness to it as well. It always killed me again with the stress. So I put it all on the table away. I've got to get back to it at some point soon. At least I've been put in a psychiatric ward now, so they've got the paperwork for the benefits. So hopefully they will leave me alone now. So what is it we've done? We can see the gifts of it all. We can see the gifts of the EDS. In the olden days, you died when you were 40 or 50 anyway. And the gifts of the EDS were, you were hypersensitive, which meant if you put something in your body that was slightly toxicating for your body and not good for it, you rejected it. Whereas the average person would keep it in their body and build it up. And then it would cause some kind of ailment somewhere in the body. Just like if you keep your emotional ailments in, it will manifest in the physical. Hence why one needs to talk and communicate. But again, if someone's not been taught that when they're younger, how are they meant to do it as an adult? Especially if they feel other person's pain when they talk to them, because no one wants to hear certain things, do they? Can we go back to book, please? The National Institute of Mental Health, the NIMH, N-I-M-H, pretty close, isn't it, has reported that more than 1/4 of all adults suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder in any given year. And we're going to stop there because that's the end of page 3. Please let 44 to 48 have a better words. That's why you got the music on. I understand now. Thank you. 44. Start from there we go. The chief investigator of the study. Mars time, action. The chief investigator of the study, Francis E. Kuo, University of Illinois, professor and director of its Human Environment Research Laboratory, observed, the theory is that when you have to struggle to maintain attention, what happens when you concentrate on a task like writing or doing computations? Neurotransmitters in the brain's prefrontal cortex get depleted. If you struggle too long without a break, you experience a condition that might be called attention fatigue. You need to let the system replenish itself, the internal system, not them. And being in a natural environment seems to let it do that. That's because of the electromagnetic frequencies and everything. Shh. For ADHD children who chronically suffer from a depletion of dopamine in their system, this need is even more pronounced. She recommends giving ADHD kids green time before any activity that requires attention. For example, if your child has trouble sitting still in church, she notes, send him to play ball on the lawn for 20 minutes before you go. If you have a garden, enlist your child's help with gardening. Pay a family visit to the park or to the nature preserve on the weekend. Rough and tumble play is another important niche activity that ADHD kids, particularly boys, need to be involved with in order to diminish or eliminate symptoms. Jacques Pansep, Distinguished Research Professor Emeritus of Psychology and Adjunct Professor of Psychiatry at the Medical College of Ohio in Toledo, has suggested that the increased number of ADHD children being diagnosed in our country may largely reflect the fact that more and more of our children no longer have adequate spaces and opportunities to express their natural biological need to play with each other in vigorous rough and tumble ways each and every day. Don't have the awareness or the education either. In experiments with rats, Pansep noticed that those that played had increased levels of dopamine in their brains compared with those that didn't play. Plus, like neurology, yeah, you can have the darkest effing life going. You don't even need to find anything. All we've got to do is simply search for something to be grateful for. So simply putting your mind down to it, putting your attention to it, and attempting to search for something to be grateful for in your life. Don't have to find anything, just the act of produces serotonin in the brain. No side effects, no come down, no residue left in your gut and your whole intestines, which is the most important for your moods. And it's the bacteria and the probiotics and the prebiotics, the live bacteria and the fibre, that creates the multitude of bacteria that creates your moods and the chemicals that go to the brain, that creates these things. So your gut brain is actually more important than your brain. It really does matter what one eats. It's like 80%. But at the same time, it's also in belief system. So it depends what you believe too. There's all these little layers that once you get these secrets and these tips, you can change your life in the easiest way possible. He also noted that access to play in rats promoted frontal lobe development, and that's this area. And this area here is actually the area that allows us to function in society. Teenagers haven't actually developed the part of the brain that enables people to be empathic and put someone else first or understand their situation. So that's why they act like they do. And kids don't know what they're doing. So parents that get angry at kids or shout at kids, it's like a reflection on yourself. Your kids are your best spiritual mirror. If they are doing something, they're copying you, because it's monkey see, not monkey do. So if you want them to change yourself. If you want anything or anyone to change yourself. Because in changing yourself, you're able to act, you're able to eventually turn your reactions into responses. And when you can do that, you won't react to other people. And also what will happen then is the other people, some will fall away because you're not fulfilling that energetic role in the drama triangle of rescuer, perpetrator or victim. And you will have true adult to adult relationships. I mean, it's very beautiful, but very rare when you see children with their adults when they're grown up and they have an adult to adult relationship and they don't fall into the child patterns again. You know, it's getting out of the drama, getting out of the ego states and getting out of the narrative eventually. But it's not getting out of the narrative for me and us, because we've got to find our narrative, and eventually, hopefully, people that have known the Neve and the collective energies of the alters in the Neve host body when they knew her, which would be a reflection of those beautiful people at the time, good and bad, and balanced out. But if their love got too healthy, it would trigger me and would have to go. And if the love got too, or if it got too dark or the other, it would trigger me and I'd have to go, because otherwise the alters come out or something. All my subconscious, my intuition knew this, but I didn't know this until after the seizures. And my purpose is to completely show myself authentically, transparently, with integrity. And I will gain enough trust and intuition and embed it strongly in myself so others' opinions and judgments don't affect me, so that I can live my life purpose and get back out in the world. But we hate being seen and heard, so it's not an easy task. So we're going to do it in our own time, at our own pace, in our own space and place, with our sound in our beautiful Healing 66's lounge. Shh. He also noted that access to play in rats promoted frontal lobe. Oh yeah, it gets stunted in trauma is what was going to be said, I think. But it can grow again. You can grow your own teeth, you can grow your own bones. Seriously, you can do anything. You just got to believe. And even if you don't believe something, doesn't mean you don't get something out of it. So even if you don't believe something, have an open mind anyway. Give it 3 chances, because the subconscious likes to resist things. It's actually a really good sign that it's probably really important to you if you've got a lot of denial. If you've got a lot of denial and you get really defensive and justify something, for me, that's a sign that there's something deep going on. It needs attention, but I don't want to go there right away, because obviously it's going to like take over. So it's like, I'll acknowledge it and go, oh, can I give you attention later on when there's time and space and energy to do so? Translating this research into practical benefits for kids diagnosed with ADHD suggests that dopamine-starved children with frontal lobe dysfunction can benefit tremendously from vigorous, free play experiences. The problem is that increasingly we're seeing a cultural trend toward a more sedentary childhood, where children sit passively watching television, playing video games, which is not true play, working at their computers and being involved in adult supervised competitive games, also not true play. And plus, if they're sitting down at such a young age, their poor structured musculoskeletal body, you know, oh. The implications for parents and educators are more recess time at school and more time at home to build forts, play wrestle, do cartwheels and somersaults, and engage in child-centered informal physical games like sandlot, baseball or football. Plus, as parents, it gets you in touch with your inner child again, and that's so hugely important. Don't like that word, though. Really like little dudes or guys. The guys, little dudes. Niche construction for adults. Use your dynamic brain. While travelling on a 747 to Europe a few years ago, I happened to sit next to a man who told me that he'd just been diagnosed by his physician with ADHD. A little bit later, as our conversation progressed, I happened to ask him what he did for a living. He told me that he worked as a media consultant for an international religious group. His job was to go to different countries around the world and make documentaries on their various projects. Each job lasted just a few weeks, after which he would go on to his next assignment. Oh, yay. I can feel the intestines doing their thing in a good way. No. Each job lasted a few weeks, after which he would go on to his next assignment. Later on, I thought to myself, this man is in a perfect job for someone labelled ADHD. He goes to a new country and works for a short period of time. Then, just at the point where he's likely to start feeling bored because of lack of stimulation, his job is over and he gets to go to a new place. And even now, he's in a jet plane going 550 miles an hour. How different this man's life would have been had he been in a typical office job sitting in a cube farm for several hours a day. It's likely that the routine, boredom, and lack of physical movement would have made his life miserable. As it turned out, without even realizing it, he had created a positive niche for himself. Physical movement, change, novelty, high stimulation, and hands-on activity are all factors that make up some of the ingredients of good niche construction for people with ADHD. Most of these elements are found, for example, in the field of firefighting. Fire Chief Harold C. Cohen gave his crew a list of 20 items from a checklist that appeared in the best-selling book for ADHD, Adults Driven to Distraction, by Edward Hallowell and John Ratey, to determine whether they might have ADHD. More than half of his staff identified 8 or more ADHD traits in themselves, including a frequent search for stimulation, impatience, and a tendency to be creative, he wrote. The intense, fast-paced world of the fire service is practically tailor-made for someone who craves, for example, constant change and adrenaline-producing situations. In turn, people with ADHD often naturally exhibit the personality characteristics such as creativity, risk-taking, and quick decision-making that are required of the best firefighters and EMTs. He also noted that those with ADHD who had trouble keeping on task and managing their time He also noted that those with ADHD who had trouble keeping on task and managing their time were helped by the fire department's paramilitary organisation, which provided a much-needed structure to keep them in line. In the fields of business and entrepreneurship also seemed to be a good match for many ADHD adults. David Neilman, founder of JetBlue Airways, who was himself diagnosed with ADHD, observed, "I knew I had strengths that other people didn't have. I can distill complicated facts and come up with simple solutions. I can look out on an industry with all kinds of problems and say, how can I do this better? My ADD brain naturally searches for better ways of doing things." Paul O'Falley, the founder of Kink Gauze and also an ADHD adult, explains how his hyperactive temperament helped him build his business. "Because I have a tendency to wander, I never spent much time in my office. My job was going store to store, noticing what people were doing right. If I had stayed in my office all the time, I would not have discovered all those wonderful ideas to help expand the business." Psychologist Kathleen Nadeau, another ADHD adult, told ABC News, "Ad people are high energy and incredibly good brainstormers. They will often happily work 12 to 15 hours by choice. The business community should not fear ADD. Instead, they should see that they have a potential gold mine here." Here is a partial list of careers that emphasize the gifts of ADHD adults. Disc jockey or radio announcer, traveling salesperson, music or dance therapist, forest ranger, recreational worker, itinerant teacher, radio, television or newspaper reporter, police officer or firefighter, nature photographer, building contractor, craftsperson, artist or sculptor, inventor or designer, private detective, community ombudsman, truck, bus or taxi cab driver, emergency room physician, freelance researcher, farmer or ranch worker, choreographer or dancer, athlete or coach, lecturer or workshop leader, aerobic or fitness instructor, surveyor or cartographer, fashion model, public relations, consultant, freelance writer, artist or editor, an airline pilot, ship captain or train engineer. In each of these careers, there is at least one element that favours the abilities of individuals diagnosed with ADHD, including being out in nature, travelling or moving around frequently, working with one's hands, being actively involved with new situations from day to day, handling emergencies, being physically engaged, doing many different things in a short period of time, engaging in creative pursuits such as the arts and being able to work for oneself. In addition to career choices, there are a number of new technologies that can help adults with ADHD build a comfortable niche with the confines of a busy and complex world. Particularly helpful is the personal digital assistant, which is a handheld computer that can help with organising and managing all the different aspects of one We need that. Most PDAs these days have been incorporated into smartphones such as the Apple iPhone or the RIM BlackBerry. The tasks that these devices with their various software applications do include, I've got to read this even though it's gone to 49, providing reminders for appointments, prioritising commitments, communicating with others, emails and cell phone capabilities, accessing the internet, navigating from one place to another, global positioning system. I thought someone had taken over my phone on the dark web, someone trusting to help me understand how to use it, but I think now actually it was just one of my alters and I've got no connection to them. That's how crazy this shit is. But I'm not crazy, I'm very aware and present with it. It's just crazy shit. Organising accounts and budgets, we need to get back on that one again too, but we haven't got that network back up and working yet, but we will. Taking notes, word processing, dictation software, we're getting better at that because we have to do our touch typing when we type out this onto there, and that helps strengthen the fingers as well and the muscles. Everything that we're doing in this process is so self-healing, and it all will be shared. Documenting events, providing stimulation and entertainment, and that's the end of that one. Yay! Accessing the power of the vagus nerve, because you're right, there's actually two. You're right, vagus is the fight, flight or freeze mode, and the vagus nerve is basically your crown's chakra. It doesn't relate to one set of organs like the other chakras, it goes through every organ. It's called the wanderer. And your left vagus nerve is your rest and digest, and all my physical injuries are on the left. So like with the EDS and the scar tissue and the not healing properly, it's no wonder like that's pretty effed. And then with the rest of it, it's like I completely understand why things are happening as they are. I just wish others would get it. Have some heart frequency, guys. What are we doing? Number 3. Okay, what does number 3 say? Page number 3. It's flowing quite well at the moment, I feel. Not that I remember. Yeah, this looks good. I'm going to read the last little paragraph. So, Below is a partial list of common problems that can arise from the autonomic nervous system. These are symptoms that affect many people. Have you experienced any of these symptoms, or do you know people who suffer from them? If so, read on or listen on, because working with the cranial nerves can bring relief. I mean, it's your 10th cranial nerve. I was telling my doctor it's the 10th cranial nerve. He Googled it in front of me and told me I was wrong. And he was the one that was wrong. And he put it all down to the physical issues. Couldn't see the physical stuff. He thought the physical stuff was just being... And I could barely walk. I was in there on crutches. That was the first doctor. The second doctor was lovely. And the first doctor that did that was actually really lovely on communication and interpersonal skills, which is normally what I have issues with. So even though he wasn't really good on the other stuff, he was good on that bit, which was good training for me. And then the second doctor was great. But then when he did a home visit, and of course it happened because I've like Reiki symboled all the houses and the doors. So anyone that does come into my house, they blatantly won't come back again if they're not on the self-healing journey and wanting to grow and be a better version of themselves, because that's what this house and energy and space is about. And bless him, came in and he sat down and he was on the rocking chair and he had his big black briefcase thing and he was hugging it with his hands. And that's really kind of, I don't remember too much. I remember that. I remember asking if I could have a joint, which is silly, but that's what the altars do to gauge the belief systems of whoever's coming into their space, because they don't know how to gauge it any other ways, and then they gauge from their reaction whether what they can say to them. They really did a great job of not doing us any favours with the start of it all 3 years ago. And he was asking me what the solution was, and we're going to give him the solution. He's going to get a nice little college work coursework thing presented to him eventually, but it was good because hopefully he wanted to know the solution. He asked me and I give it to him, so hopefully I know that I've got the people out there. I just need to remember who they are and make connections, because I can make all of this work. I can make the people out there that are suffering and don't have a voice not suffering more. And I can make the people out there that are accidentally judgmental because of their own fears understand better and understand that they need to change themselves and have a better internal dialogue with themselves, and anything that they think someone else is doing to them, get over it. You're allowing it to be done to yourself. But get over it in the nicest possible way, because if you're allowing it to be done to yourself, there's reasons why that's happening. So you need love and compassion and gentleness and patience. If so, read on, because working with the cranial nerves can bring in relief. The heads of the Hydra, or the heads of the Hydra, Hydra. Common problems related to cranial nerve dysfunction: chronic physical tensions, tense hard muscles, sore neck and shoulder muscles, migraines, back pain, tightly clenched teeth, grinding teeth at night, eye or facial tensions, cold hands and feet, unwarranted sweating, tenseness after exertion, arthritis, nervousness, dizziness, lump in throat. It's hard work reading all this because we react to everything and we have a lot of it. So we're having to manage a lot of pain, physical pain, because that's the only way through. But we've got the shaking book next, and good stuff going next. We need to do this stuff. Emotional issues. Express it how it is. Irritability and anger. Feeling down. Feeling of hopelessness. Lack of energy. Tendency to cry easily. When we're really, really good and happy inside, we cry. When we shit inside, I suppose that's what we've hidden to everyone so long. We laugh. That's good, I suppose, in some ways. General anxiety, feeling of heaviness, extended periods of depression, fearfulness and nightmares. Bye-bye page 3, up to page 44. Oh, that was hard. They can feel sad, anxious, empty, hopeless, worthless, guilty, irritable, ashamed or restless. God, this is really tapping into emotions. Ow! What do you do that for? Fuckers. Sorry, not fuckers. I obviously needed a bit of release in the eye fascia. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, we'll give ourselves a face massage with that later on. When you give yourself a face massage or do face yoga, you're toning up your internal organs. Best way to lose weight. Don't have to do physical activity. And you just got to massage your face and just do mouth yoga. Yeah, let's do that actually. So this side of the teeth is your front body, behind the teeth side, or your back body. When I stick my tongue out, it's like the tongue, the centre of the tongue is like that centre of vacuum equilibrium. That's where the pinpoint is, and it helps the. When you shut your each tooth basically is a certain meridian, a certain colour, a certain thread, a certain tube, whatever you want to call it. When you put your tongue is a multitude. If you think of electrician and you wires and if electricing a house, you're not electricing a house. What do you do with a house? Electricing. No, you put the wire a house. You can have, you've got your wires going to each individual appliance or socket or whatever, what have you, but then they all come into one point, and when they all come into one point, they all come together. That's basically your tongue with a sheath around it. So each part of your tongue has got, like, you've got different taste pads and sensors, that each part of your tongue's got a different wire. So depending where that goes on your tooth or in your mouth, you're creating an electrical circuit and you're joining the circuit basically. So like where I had my piercings, they were on the main Sushumna channel going down, so it's completely understandable why my Sushumna is so blocked, but it was blocked before and I needed to put that in because our subconscious knows what's best at the time, and it did the piercings to help obviously ease some pain or do something. But then obviously with the EDS and the lack of healing, you've then got to kind of work through that fascia that's ended up binding itself together and doesn't have any of the impulses going through. So you have to kind of create that and stimulate that yourself. Oh, that was a random one. They may experience lethargy, lack of energy, and a lack of goal-orientated activity. They can have problems concentrating, remembering details, or making decisions, and are often plagued by the aches and pains of fibromyalgia. They may contemplate, attempt, or commit suicide. These can all be symptoms of activity in the dorsal branch of the vagus nerve. The dorsal branch is the upper figure of eight movement of the arms and the upper nervous system, and then you've got the bottom figure of eight, which is the legs. Mine aren't connected yet, and sometimes one works without the other. The medical literature has generally focused on the physiology of chronic stress, with less attention given to the physiology underlying chronic depression. Because basically, it's not all just in the head for anyone. The networks in the body relate to the networks in they don't just relate, they're connected to the networks in the head. I know, because I'm experiencing it physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it. It's not just me in my head and theory coming out, because I haven't got my head together to make this come out. I've got to fucking retrace it and do digital diaries and put it all together like a jigsaw puzzle. So, you know. Whew. But when people come to my clinic with a diagnosis of depression from a psychologist or psychiatrist, or when they exhibit depressive behaviour, I find that their problem is usually accompanied by a state of activation of the dorsal branch of their vagus nerve. If the transition into a dorsal state has involved a sudden surge in dorsal branch activity, the event can be described as a shock or trauma, and we can describe its effect as shutdown. When a person faces an overwhelmingly dangerous situation and or the possibility of an imminent death. But you see, I've had so many of those experiences, I don't shut down when it comes to that, I'm afraid. We're very pro at the fight and flight, freeze. More so than the conscious. It is a natural reaction to dissociate from one's own body, from the here and now, to shut down physically, emotionally and mentally, and perhaps even to faint. Yeah, that'd happen a lot, wouldn't it? Lift our arm up to get something. Whoa, I'm on the floor, what happened there? But we mastered that one too, because the body's amazing. And this body of mine, and because of the trauma and everything that it's been going to, it's very skilled at knowing the dark frequencies. And when it experiences the dark frequency ones, we had those seizures, megally so. It knew the frequency, so it knew when it was coming up again, and it did stuff to change it. It meant it had to break other circuits and other stuff happen, which wasn't very nice. But that's the whole process. You know, if you're completely not wired properly in the first place, or if a building's got really bad foundations, you have to knock the building down and start the foundations again. That's why it's good that all the bad stuff's happened to me, because I've needed to be chucked in the deep end. It doesn't mean that it's had to happen that way, and I would have chosen another way. It just means that I can find the positive to the negative, but still appreciate and be grateful for the negative. Even if it's not fully felt for all my bodies yet, I have the core there, and it will be. Promise you it will be. Not stayed around for this long, not to fucking get all the way. Ideally, when the danger has passed, we should move out of this state and back into social engagement. We should come back to our senses, or just get to our senses in the first place. As in, like, I haven't got anything to get back to, because mine are unique, so I'm getting mine to a sense that is balanced between society and me, that makes everyone comfortable. However, many people get stuck at some level of this state of immobilization with fear. In this case, it is appropriate to suspect that there is chronic activation of the dorsal vagal nerve. Prior to the polyvagal theory, depression and depressive behaviours issues lacked a physiological model in terms of the nervous system. It neither fit into the category of stress nor that of relaxation. Perhaps this is why it has been so difficult to find safe, non-addictive and effective treatments for conditions such as depression. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory focuses on the relationship of the autonomic nervous system, the emotions and behaviour. His work has awakened a growing interest in applications of these understandings by psychologists, psychiatrists, and an array of gifted, insightful trauma therapists. We may not have any qualifications, but we've got life experiences, and that's better than qualification. Who would you rather go see? Someone who's educated and qualified in it but hasn't lived it, or someone who's lived it and come through it? I know who I'd rather go and see. Well, that's the only people I do go and see, or have gone and seen. No more, we do it ourselves now. Shh. He describes what he calls the vagal brake, how activation of the social engagement circuit puts the brakes on the other circuits and lifts us out of a chronic dorsal vagal or spinal sympathetic state. Because they're all different states of consciousness, all different brave brain states. All to do with frequencies, all to do with the numbers, I tell you, it's all to do with the numbers. Under normal conditions of challenges to survival, the spinal sympathetic chain or the dorsal branch of the vagal nerve may be triggered into active states of defence. However, when social engagement is coupled with either of these circuits, the range of human behaviour is expanded by keeping the individual out of a defensive state. What happens when you've got a pressure cooker that's boiling over and the lid's not screwed on properly? And you try to force the lid on, but you don't force the lid on from the right place. When social engagement joins together with the spinal or sympathetic chain, this hybrid enables friendly movements, including symbolic fighting, which are at the heart of the human activity of play. When the dorsal vagal circuit support of immobilization is joined with the protective regulatory features of the ventral vagus and other components of the social engagement system, such as prosodic vocalizations, feelings of intimacy may spontaneously emerge. People can be close together physically and share the positive feelings of love. Using the exercises in this book, it should only take a minute or two to get back into a state of social engagement. Symptoms of a dorsal vagal state. If we are not socially engaged, we can experience many negative physical and emotional symptoms when faced with adverse conditions. One response is the state of mobilization of the spinal sympathetic chain, characterized by activities of fight or flight. It's why my autonomic nervous system is dying. I don't want to cause pain on people. I will take people's projections of pain onto me, even though I'm more mentally and physically vulnerable at the moment, even when they get angry at me for the thing that they got angry at others at, and then project that onto me when they've seen me right from the start and how vulnerable I am, and then can't take any accountability or responsibility for their part in it, and then are trying to get back in communication with me. I'm sorry, but that's not a healthy vibration I'm letting back in my life, especially after I've just been to a psych walk. I can only have healthy people in my life now. But all I need for that is for people, when they do, if they want to come back and be in my company, whether that's once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, once every 2 months, whatever they can manage, is just to be in that adult when they're in my company and to be able to manage their triggers. Because there will be triggers, but that's okay, I know that. But we can work through the triggers together. No. Don't, bad word. We dance through the triggers together. Probably literally, I'll get my sound stuff out. I might put 5 rhythms on. I might put a chakra dance on. I might get you to do the Fibonacci pulse reset. So yeah, you may come in and you may be triggered, but all it's doing is clearing the chaos and the pain frequencies in your body and getting them out, and not from a typical conventional societal way where you have to revisit the trauma in your mind and your left brain. You've seen what reading does to me in triggers, but at least this is all triggering it from the right brain and it's just coming out. It's not like it's doing anything else to me, it's just clearing it in a way that's comfortable for me. This is my right brain psychotherapy. We're out there, psychotherapy. And it works. But do know, if you know anyone whatsoever that is reclusing themselves away more and more and not seeing anyone, they are doing that for a reason. And they are not in a healthy position. They're probably doing it to protect everyone else. But then it means they have no human contact, and humans need human contact. Otherwise, the autonomic nervous system will eventually die. If everything else is low, drained and whatever as well. So be the bigger person for yourself and for the other. But not by being the rescuer and putting them into their victim. That won't work either. The other response comes from activation of the dorsal vagal circuit. Our muscles and connective tissues lose their normal tonus, soften and go limp, and our body feels heavy. To someone else, our muscles feel flaccid. If we try to do even a small task, it takes a monumental effort to move. In this state, we typically feel helpless, apathetic and hopeless. Our heartbeat slows and our blood pressure drops. Stop doing Supta Baddha Konasana, that legs open like that, release emotions. We need to close our legs to close the emotions. Okay, well remembered, body. Thank you for helping. Let's see if this works. Change the pattern. Oh. Okay. Drink. Oh, spilled it and got it in my eye, damn it. Whoa, lemon juice stings, doesn't it? That's good. It's in the eye that we poked as well. Lots going on. Lots going on. This is good. Passing through it like an exponential curve. Taking years and years, but when we do, we're going to shock you all. 16 stone back down to 10, psychiatric cord on section 2, and then you'll watch and you'll see the healing powers of the energy. And then you'll start doing it for yourself for sure. There's so much to know. Did we go on to the next page? Yes, I think we did. Symptoms of a dorsal vagal state. If we are not socially engaged, we can experience many negative physical and emotional symptoms when faced with adverse conditions. One response is the state of mobilization of the spinal sympathetic chain, characterized by activities of fight or flight. The other response comes from activation of the dorsal vagal circuit. Our muscles and connective tissue lose their normal tonus, soften, and go limp, and our body feels heavy. To someone else, our muscles feel flaccid. If we try to do even a small task, it takes a monumental effort to move. In this state, we typically feel helpless, apathetic, and hopeless. I mean, EDS people, they use up 4 times more energy than the average person anyway. And then if you've lived a life like I have, or many lives in one, it's no wonder everything's come to a halt. It's like there's only so much energy to go around and all that shit, isn't there? We need to replenish it from the universal, multiversal flow that comes from within out. Our heart beats slow and our blood pressure drops. The blood withdraws from the periphery of the body and gathers in the centre. Much of the blood, full of oxygen and nutrients that normally would go to the arms and legs to enable a fight or flight response in spinal sympathetic chain activity, is retracted to the thorax and abdomen to maintain minimal levels of basic visceral functions. Thus our hands and feet feel cold and clammy. When we're in a dorsal vagal state, we often have pains that move around to different places, referred fascia pain, in the body. Most people believe that pain in the body comes from tight muscles. And therapists usually massage the body where it hurts. Or where the muscles are hard. But often when a massage therapist alleviates pain at one place, another pain arises somewhere else. Because what is pain? Pain is just a symptom. It isn't the origin. It normally origins from somewhere else, which is normally on the opposite. It's like a figure of 8 loop. So if you go to like the opposite and a diagonal, and then on the other side of the body, you'd normally roughly get an area of where it's the pain stemming from, if it's physical pain. And like the nervous system acts in exactly the same way as the muscular system, and basically the nervous system is more important because that's what sends the nerves to the muscles, the signals to the muscles. This may seem inexplicable to massage therapists who know that they did a good job making one's hard muscle now feel soft. The client, not acknowledging improvement from what we have done, says, now the pain has moved to here. So the therapist chases the pain from one place to another. All starts with an itch, by the way. So if you get an itch somewhere and you go to itch it, stop, breathe, witness, a dry breath, number 1, just observe. And don't itch where the itch is. Use a different hand. You could use that hand to start with, but then use a different hand and swap the pattern. Works quite well for us, I'll tell you. I can't tell you how it works for yet because I haven't like chased up detective work to put all the information together. But energetically wise, I feel it works really well. Shush, please, read. We want to read. It's hard, I know. Distractions. Rather than simply massaging an area that hurts, the best way to treat this condition is to alleviate the person from a dorsal vagal state by activating the ventral circuit state, for example, with the basic exercise, see part 2. There are other commonly observable signs when we are in a state of shock or shutdown. The face loses its colour and appears lifeless and unresponsive. The face expression is unchanging and facial muscles slag. I mean, you can see on one side of my mouth, face, or it's like more droopy. The voice also lacks prosody, melodic expressiveness. It is flat and without melody. The eyes appear dull and lifeless. There is no sparkle. We may also have low blood pressure, which can cause dizziness or fainting. Vasovagal syncope. This occurs because if our muscles are undertoned, our blood pressure does not need to be high in order to push blood through the lowered resistance in the muscles. Dorsal vagal state may also be involved in POTS. God, I've got it all. People with POTS typically faint when they stand up and their blood pressure drops. This has got heaps better though, this one. It's actually called postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. They often exhibit numerous symptoms of autonomic nervous system dysregulation. Many POTS symptoms seem to be caused by an imbalance of the autonomic nervous system's control over blood flow and blood pressure. The autonomic nervous system regulates the necessary adjustments in the vascular tone, heart rate. That's why sound meditation is so good, because when doing the sound meditation, you're vibrating your vocal cords. And Adam's apple basically is the small part related to your stomach. And when you can create that space in your stomach, and you can expand it out like you're pregnant and then contract it in as well, you've got a really healthy abdomen, hara area, and then you've got a really healthy throat area. So that's kind of what we're dancing with. And the vibrations when you do the singing, like plucking a guitar string, you pluck a guitar string and it vibrates all the way along. That's what's happening when you can do it on yourself. Feel a ligament that's tight, start plucking it, you'll release stuff in that ligament, and you'll notice eventually if you've really got to an area and you're releasing those tight ones. That's what I was doing with the neck earlier. That's what I've got to do with the hand one. It's the major crossing one that goes through the body. You eventually notice stuff going on in your guts and they'll start making noises, and that's your parasympathetic nervous system kicking in. So that's a really good sign. Plus, when you feel hungry, the hunger feeling, it's actually the same feeling for feeling thirsty as well. So it's better to drink water first before eating food to fill up that thing. But you can drink heaps of water and not get hydrated, because there's a fourth form now, which is like a plasma type form. So it doesn't matter how much water you drink. If you've not got this in your body, you're not going to rehydrate. But diatomaceous earth, that's the one. Honestly, diatomaceous, it helps clean out your guts because it's really old fossils from the earth, and it's got these really tiny hooks that scrapes all the mucus from your guts. It helps you break down proteins and meats. It absorbs heavy metals and heavy toxins, and it's 89% silica, which is the foundation, the number one foundation of life, basically. And it's what makes your fascia, your connective tissue in your body. So, I mean, if you end up taking calcium supplements and other things, which is daft, really, because if your fascia is not working, the calcium can't adhere to the fascia, and therefore you're just going to create your own kidney stones and calcium growths elsewhere. And why do we need to take calcium supplements when our body makes its calcium? Surely we just need to take what we need to take that makes the calcium and do what we need to do that's not functioning properly to make the calcium. And that's where we need to be better educated and aware for people. And that's basically what my website and everything's going to be sharing. I'm going to be sharing all of this, most of it for free, but I'm going to find a way of benefits too. And that's going to go on a GoFundMe page somehow. Well, it's exciting stuff. It's all, I don't know what it is all yet, but I can feel it. It's great. It's got to come out slowly though. Slowly though. In POTS, the system seems to be out of balance and the blood is not going to the right places. Activation of the dorsal vagal circuit can also cause sweating or nausea. In extreme situations, such as in sudden and severe fright, there can be a loss of bladder and anal sphincter control. Breathing slows, and the volume of each breath is far less than usual. Our mental awareness turns inwards, or even disappears entirely with overwhelming danger presents itself. resulting in dissociation, a withdrawal of consciousness from the body. I thank my altars so much. They really have held all the physical pain well, and considering what I've had and what I've done with my life, my poor, poor body. I love you so much now. Trust me, I do. In extreme situations, such as in sudden and severe fright, there can be a loss of bladder and anal sphincter, RETCNIHPS, 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 In extreme situations, such as in sudden and severe fright, there can be a loss of bladder and anal sphincter control. Breathing slows, and the volume of each breath is far less than usual. Our mental awareness turns inward, or even disappears entirely when overwhelming danger presents itself. It's subjective overwhelming danger that's presenting itself that causes that. Resulting in dissociation, a withdrawal of consciousness from the body. That's why EDS people don't have proprioception in their body either. We are not in the here and now, and we may feel as if we are having an out-of-body experience, as if watching what is going on from a great distance. The blood flow to the frontal lobes of our brain is also reduced by dorsal vagus activation. These lobes are where our higher functions reside. The frontal lobes are considered the human part of the brain and are involved with the functions of language and will. By will, I mean conceiving an idea to do something and monitoring our progress towards that goal. Often, after a traumatic event, we say that we do not remember what happened. Our brain is incapable of forming verbalizations or visualizations about what had been going on at the time because they were reacting from a different, more primitive part of our brain and nervous system. Dissociation is a widespread problem. It can be characterized as ongoing activity of the dorsal vagus nerve that keeps us in a physiological state of fear. We may be present in a group, but not take part in a conversation. We may be lethargic and lack empathy. We might talk a lot, but say nothing meaningful about ourselves or our situation. We cannot set goals or take actions to bring about changes that could help us in life. This depressive mindset is supported by chronic activity of the dorsal branch of the vagus nerve. However, if we are without fear, dorsal vagal activity has quite a different effect. The state of immobilization without fear, based on dorsal vagal activity, combined with the activity of the cranial nerves of social engagement, provides the physiological foundation for rest and restitution and supports intimacy. Effects of ventral vagus activity. My dorsal vagus nerve is loving this right now, I'm telling you. A step above reptiles, at the top of the evolutionary ladder, the class of mammals, including human beings, has attained a more sophisticated nervous system that includes ventral as well as dorsal vagal circuits. Note that modern reptiles are not the evolutionary ancestors of mammals. Primitive, now extinct reptiles are our evolutionary precursors. In the entire animal kingdom, only mammals have a ventral circuit, which is the ventral branch of the vagus nerve. To activate this ventral vagal circuit, the individual must both be and feel safe in terms of the environment, as well as in terms of feedback from the proprioceptive nerves that monitor what is going on in the body. The ventral vagal circuit can be active when we are physically active, or when we are immobile. It gives rise to the state of social engagement, together with 4 other cranial nerves, CN, V, VIIX and X1, or CN 5 in Roman numerals, 7, 9 and 11. Social engagement goes far beyond the simple concept of relaxation in the old model of the autonomic nervous system, with its two-state vacillation between stress and relaxation. The ventral vagal state allows us to rest and restore ourselves. We are not in a state of fear, and we can choose to be immobile. We can sit in a rocking chair on the back porch on a warm summer evening with someone we like and watch the sun go down. We can listen to music, we can daydream or meditate. When we are not socially engaged, on the other hand, we can experience many negative physical and emotional symptoms, such as the state of sympathetic nervous system mobilization, characterized by fight or flight, I never say the freeze, or dorsal vagal immobilization, frozen and or with depressed behavior. Oh, so is the dorsal vagal immobilization, that's the freeze state of the fight or flight. Oh, we do know it well, don't we? Ding ding. Despite these very different functions of the vagal and dorsal branches, it is not surprising that Galen and the anatomists who followed after him were not aware that the dorsal and ventral vagus branches are separate entities. That's why the inward singing and the outward singing is good, I'm guessing. Not that I fully understand that, but that seems to be our answer. Not answer, just our reflex. Shush! When Galen looked into the wounds of the gladiators or dissected pigs and Barbary apes, he did not have the luxury we have today in the dissecting rooms of our universities. He could not cool the cadavers, preserve them with formaldehyde, or observe them under microscopes. Given all these difficulties, it is remarkable that Galen was able to discover so much detail about the anatomy of the vagal nerves, and with such accuracy. Yet, his understandable for failure to distinguish between the two nerve branches that share the name vagus, or maybe it's the left and right, has misled students and practitioners of anatomy, physiology, psychology and medicine for thousands of years. Yay, it's over. Medicine! Shaking medicine! What's on number 3 of this one? We need a CD player. We need to fix our little portable one. Listen to our CDs. Or the computer one. Page 3. These comments serve as much to describe the observer's bewilderment with conduct outside the familiar grounds of their own experiences as they do to describe the experience itself. I'm just going to read the back a bit because this is a really important one. Indigenous wisdom knows that to live is to move. To awaken from our deep slumber means our bones will be rattled, literally for us, and we will be shaken to the core. In this invitation into very ancient medicine, we hear the voices of the elders, issuing a timely wake-up call, accessible to the modern world through Bradford Keeney, their brother and representative in the West. And that's a quote from Malidoma Some, who's an Eldon teacher and author of The Healing Wisdom of Africa and of Water and the Spirit. Shaking medicine reintroduces the oldest medicine on earth, the ecstatic shaking of the human body. Most people's worst fear is losing control of their circumstances, of their emotions, and especially of their bodies. Yet, in order to achieve the transcendent state necessary to experience deep healing, we must surrender control. Examining cultural traditions from around the world where shaking has been used as a form of healing, from the Shakers and Quakers of New England to the shaking medicine of Japan, India, the Caribbean, the Kalahari and the Indian Shakers of the Pacific Northwest. Bradford Keeney shows how shaking can bring profound therapeutic benefits. It's making me feel great. I've got shivers going down my spine just reading this. Love it. Keeney investigates the fuller spectrum of the healing cycle that occurs when moving from ecstatic arousal to deep trance relaxation. He explains how the altering movement produced while shaking brings all the body's energetic systems into balance. He includes practical exercises and how to shake for physical therapeutic benefit. Music's changed. That's head of action, didn't it? I think I need to turn that off now. No, it's a Ganesh one. Ganesh removes removes obstacles, so let's just leave that on. Help. Oh God, it's so hard to retrace the steps. It's been great. He includes practical exercises in how to shake for physical therapeutic benefit, and he shows how these techniques lead ultimately to the shaking medicine that both enables and enhances spiritual attunement. The book also includes a 40-minute CD of ecstatic drumming music to use while shaking. Bradford Keeney is an internationally renowned scholar, therapist, and shaman who has led expeditions throughout the world to study cultural healing practices. He is an honorary senior He is an honorary senior research fellow at the Rock Art Research Institute, University of Witwatersrand. Fucking hell, that was good considering I have went to speech therapist for my W's and R's. Johannesburg, South Africa, and is the author of Bushman Shaman. Awakening the spirit through ecstatic dance, shamanic Christianity, the direct experience of mystical communion, and the editor of the Profiles of Healing series. For example, the anthropologist Wallace Zane studied Shakerism among the converted in the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. His book, Journeys to the Spiritual Lands, is a brilliant account of this form of shaking religion. Yet when it comes to one of their most important experiences, shaking, he struggles to understand it. As he writes, trying to get at the experience, I asked the converted over and over to help me understand the process of shaking. The words must have been difficult to extract because his research proceeds to report very little about the experience of shaking itself. It wasn't long ago that the practices of yoga, meditation, and acupuncture were relatively unknown and definitely not mainstream in our culture. Many people feared meditation, some still do. All meditation means is focusing your energy with full concentration on one thing, whether it's an active or a still meditation. If you're someone that's experienced trauma as childhood, don't go straight in for the still ones because the traumatized body doesn't want to go still. It will send you into seizures or spasms of some sort. It's good information to know that first. Psychologists and psychiatrists use the word xenophobia, an inappropriate fear of something perceived as foreign or different, to name this unfounded fear after groups of Western physicians went to China and made public their approval. The quiet practices of the Asian cultures were gradually welcomed to our neighborhoods and universities. Now almost every city and small town in the America has someone practicing meditation and receiving acupuncture. We know, without pausing to doubt, that relaxation and rest help us heal. The idea that relaxation and stillness bring forth healing is a paradigm that Dr. Herbert Benson of Harvard Medical School named the relaxation response. It is part of the Eastern and Western zeitgeist. What we await is the other half of the picture. The complement to relaxation is arousal. This side of the healing process can be called the arousal response. What we are ready to learn is that heightened arousal, whether through wild dancing, spontaneous jumping up and down, or body shaking, is as valuable a healing and transformational practice as sitting quietly in a lotus position. This book calls forth the importance of wild activity in our bodies, minds, and souls. As we once let in the healing wisdom of Asia, it is time to let in the healing wisdom of Africa. It is time for the shaking body to become as familiar to us as the quietened body. We did our yoga course and I tried teacher training, and what did it teach our body? What did our body tell us? It wanted to shake. And what did they tell us? No, you'll disrupt your nervous system, which is probably true for a lot of people. And what did we do? We didn't trust ourselves. We didn't know ourselves because of the DID. So we listened to them and we hurt ourselves more. And we will show ourselves now so that we... And the dyslexia, I mean, when you open up your arms to relieve depression, because when you lift your arms up, you're meant to open them up that way to relieve depression. Of course, we're hypermobile, and we'd open our arms up that way, going roundwards, which is wrong, but that's just our processing language disorder getting stuff backwards. And then our body could accommodate it because of the hypermobility. Fabulous shape-shifting body. 44. Where does the first sentence start? Although the Titus, the world's first shakers. Although the Bushmen had been intensely studied by numerous scholars over many years, including members of Harvard Kalahari Research Project, some of the more essential aspects of healing ways had been misunderstood or missed. I finally went public and began telling a few well-known scholars about how I came to know the Bushman practice of shaking medicine. Body likes this one. I knew about their shamanism because I had become one of their shamans. One of the first scholars I shared this with was the distinguished rock art scientist Professor David Lewis Williams. Thanks for saying that itch thing out loud earlier. Welcome. He had founded the Rock Art Research Laboratory at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa, one of the most respected rock art scientists of Africa. Rock art scientist. He advanced the shamanistic hypothesis of rock art. He argued that rock art was usually the rendering of a shaman's ecstatic experiences. Oh, rock art, not as an artwork on a rock, but that's the shaking, the rocking, shaking art of rocking, maybe? Shh. He argued that rock art was usually the rendering of a shaman's ecstatic experiences and altered states of consciousness. He based, all shamans are autistic, by the way. He based his theories on historic ethnographic reports about Bushman shamans and the scientific literature regarding how human beings enter into and experience altered states of consciousness. Being in South Africa, he had access to Bushman rock art, and my fieldwork with the Bushmen was of interest to him. This is too distracting. Last book. How do I stop? When I presented my data to the professor, he was thrilled to see how it further confirmed the idea that Bushman rock art images often depict the Bushman shamans' experiences in their healing dances. Over the years, we developed a cordial friendship. I would meet with him after I had been out in the African bush and discuss my latest findings and experiences. I also met with the other scholars of the Rock Art Research Institute, and we examined rock art images and discussed Bushman shamanism. On one occasion, the senior scientists of the institute went out into the field with me, and I introduced them to some of the Bushman shamans. Keep in mind that all of these scholars were professed atheists who declared that they personally dismissed spiritual beliefs. Their relationship to me was complicated by my assertion that the Bushman's experiences were something other than hallucinations. I would say to them around an evening campfire in the Kalahari, how is it possible for me to dream one of their important dreams if no one has ever written or spoken about them? I knew they could not understand that some shamanistic experiences are not explainable, like the majority of life. Hence quantum physics, quantum biology, Newtonian physics just been a small spectrum on that, and Newtonian physics been our understanding of the reality. From their belief system and point of view, I too must be hallucinating. And surely the Bushmen were simply being polite and placating me by saying I had dreamed something important. To test their hypothesis, one of the scientists told some Bushman shamans the next morning that he had had a special dream about a zebra, a symbol for EDS. He made up what he was saying, expecting to prove that the Bushmen had been placating me over the years. To his surprise, they looked at him as if he was crazy and said they didn't know what he was talking about. Later in the day, when the rock art scientists were napping, the Bushmen took me aside and asked if these men were troubled or confused. They were teasing, but at the same time they sincerely didn't understand why the scientists didn't get the essence of their healing way. They had become used to anthropologists, asking them odd questions, and told me they didn't believe it was possible for some people to understand. In their words, "You must have the right feeling in your heart to understand us." On my part, I sincerely appreciated my friendship with the scientific colleagues, and they remain my close colleagues, because they helped me understand how well educated and how well intentioned outsiders would react to reports about shamanic experiences. I learned firsthand that there is an experiential universe that the Bushman shamans are able to enter. And it is opened by the shaking medicine. One of the major discussions I had with the rock art scientists over the years concerned my discovery that some of the previous anthropological work conducted by eminent scholars was incomplete and at times off the mark. They countered by persistently asking me to specify how the other scholars' work could be mistaken. The gist of the matter was that some of the earliest ethnographic reports proposed that the Bushmen believed their shamans primarily engage in a battle with the ancestral spirits, whom they regard as the cause of disease. More recently, in an article entitled "At War with God, Juan Curing Dances," Juan Platray, a scholar from Leiden University, proposed that God and the deceased were blamed by the Bushmen for the evil presence in the group, were declared personae non gratae and refused admission to the dances as unwelcome aliens, as they waged a continual ritual war upon them as their sole enemies. Here the mood of a shaman is dramatically depicted as that of a warrior battling God and malevolent ancestral spirits. Practically all descriptions of Bushman healing have been framed this way. I found the opposite, namely that the shaman's mood was filled with great love for the ancestors, especially for those loved ones from their own families who had passed on. The Bushman people longed for their missing ancestors' presence and pleaded with them to help cure the sick and renew the community's well-being. Sometimes the ancestors made them feel a little sick, so they would be reminded to shake and take care of themselves. And sometimes deceased ancestors would miss their loved ones on earth so much that they wished those living would pass over and join them for company. But the loved ancestors were largely benevolent, and the imagined interactions with them were love-centered. There were other presences that could inflict harm, like previous shamans who had been more interested in being manipulators of power than in healing. However, in general, people were usually made sick by bad feelings, anger, jealousy, arrogance, and selfishness, whether they came from living relatives or dead ones. In addition, the shamans told me that another reason people became sick is that they don't dance enough. That is, they don't receive enough shaking medicine. Whatever the cause of illness, the loved ancestral spirits were usually there to help and empower the healing. No, that is not possible, my colleagues would exclaim. How could so many scholars have gotten it wrong? Their questions reminded me of a story my high school science teacher, Robert Sanskrit, once told me. Some time ago, there was a woman who cooked the best ham anyone had ever tasted. When they asked by a famous chef what her secret was, she said the only thing she knew that was radically different about her preparation was that she cut off the end of the ham before she cooked it. She explained that her mother had taught her this method. Her mother, sitting by her side, agreed and said that this was how her mother had always cooked it. At the next holiday dinner, the daughter and mother were pleased to tell grandmother that a renowned chef was interested in how the family made their special ham. They told her how they assumed the secret must be cutting off the end. Grandmother started laughing and could not stop. Finally, when she got hold of herself, she said, "But my dears, I only had to cut off the end because I had a small cooking pan." The moral of this story is that sometimes a person starts an idea or a practice, and then everyone subsequently follows it without questioning whether it is meaningful or true. You've got to get the 4 agreements, question everything. Don't take any personally. Always do your best, knowing that your best ain't always going to be the same. In the case of the anthropological study of the Bushmen, the earliest scholars had recorded several ideas about healing that were likely misunderstood or set forth by inexperienced shamans. There are clues that the latter might be the case. Some shamans in the earliest interviews described themselves as not being the strongest shamans and not yet capable of the most important shamanic experiences. One of the Bushmen interviewed by the John Marshall expedition, Kuntabu of Sumkri, Namibia, told me that the first white people the Bushmen met, the Marshall family, didn't interview their strongest shamans because they conducted their interviews during the day when the shamans were out hunting. Future anthropological work presumably made the assumption that the early reports were accurate, so they kept quoting them as the authoritative sources. The incomplete view of Bushman healing was repeated, article after article, book after book, through the years. I don't want to be too harsh on previous anthropological work. Many anthropologists have made remarkable contributions to our understanding of Bushman life. And all in all, the mistakes weren't indicative of having been misled or using faulty interview techniques. It was more a matter of not having the complete picture, assuming, never make assumptions, that one description was the whole rather than a part. For instance, the Bushmen do believe that the occasional bad feelings of living relatives and dead ancestors can make them sick, while largely benevolent ancestors can also make them sick as a means of helping them. Remember to practice their way of well-being rather than making mischief or stalking them to make a kill. Our panting, when we pant, or I pant, it creates a micro shake in the internal organs, so you don't always have to shake the whole body. You can shake a part of the body, like this that we do. Left is present, right is past. This is what the Maoris do to enable to be present. So this, I suppose, is a yoga mudra for presence. So if you ever find yourself not present, do this. Swap pattern. I'm a lot better at shaking it with my right hand. So that's shaking it, loosening it up, the past, because the more present I become, the more my past comes out. The more the irony. So yeah, it takes better, but it's still out. I need to get that elbow in and back, but this needs to ravel round and coil round first. I began my work with the Bushmen when I was a university professor, reaching and teaching the nature of personal and social change in a therapeutic context. I had followed the footsteps of my mentor, anthropologist Gregory Bateson, who tried to articulate a systemic view of mind and relationships that was a radical EVITANRETLA, 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 EVITANRETLA. E-V-I-T-A-N-R-E-T-L-A. Evit and Retler. Evit and Retler. Who tried to articulate a systemic view of mind and relationships that was a radical alternative to traditional psychological and sociological explanatory metaphors. Whereas an academic trained in clinical psychology or an anthropologist turning to psychological ideas would be more inclined to give the Bushman psychological tests and structured interviews. My background emphasized interactive knowing, the kind of participatory engagement that is more akin to the conduct of an improvisational actor than to a social scientist armed with theories and instruments. Whereas most social scientists believed that in order to act, you must first understand, give tests and ask questions. It's where I get it from, isn't it? My axiom, following an interactional perspective, was in order to understand, you must first interact. From my orientation to understand the Bushmen shaking and dancing, I had to first dance with the Bushmen and continue dancing with them, rather than emphasis on interviewing them. This interactional and improvisational way of participating was familiar ground to the profession of interactional psychotherapy, which I taught and practiced in both university and clinical settings. The turning point in my interaction with scholars came when I met one of the members of the Harvard Kalahari Research Project, who was one of the members of the Harvard, who was also co-founder of the Kalahari People Fund, the superb anthropologist and folklorist Megan Beisel. And breathe. She was one of the most respected scholars of Bushman culture and was dedicated advocate of the Kalahari people. It was a priority of hers to make sure they were understood with respect, clarity, and accuracy. Although we had never met, I invited her to come to my house and review my findings. At the time, I lived in Tucson. The day before Megan arrived, my wife discovered some peach-faced lovebirds in our backyard. They were indigenous to Namibia, where both Megan and I had studied the Bushmen. But as my wife found out from the Audubon Society, they had over years become a feral species in Phoenix. Though they were rarely sighted in Tucson, it seemed quite an omen for the birds to show up the day before Megan's visit. That's what it's all about. I've got to do one more. One more. Which one? The Toltec Way. Not that one. Yin Yoga, Voluntary Controls of the Human Energy System. One of these two. That's got circles on. And that's got shapes and pictures. So we're going to do this one because it's got the shapes and pictures. And we're obviously trying to get into the linear system world more. So we're going to go for structure and order. And yes, because Saturn's about order and structure and boundaries. And that's coming into a big place soon. Watch out, guys. You're going to all be tested. What's the page number 3? Page number 3. Page number 3 is number 1, mediating and meditating. We'd actually call medication. We'd say medication, but it would mean meditation. Gets very confusing. Mediating and meditating. Meditation is a tool to help solve problems and achieve goals in our daily lives. But many people who have acquired the tool of meditation never really use it. They not only waste this valuable resource, they also run into some difficulty reconciling their daily lives with their meditative experiences. Creative meditation, comme ça, is an active form of meditation that begins as a specific practice or exercise, but eventually becomes a way of life. Reading skills too, you see, reading out loud, comprehension skills. We've got our early learning class today with 57 GTK. 57 is the numerological number for teaching too. It is a foolhardy to use any tool to pattern switched leg cross. That's better. It is foolhardy to use any tool without becoming well acquainted with it. They say that, but if you're someone that can't become well acquainted with it and you've got no other option but to use that tool, then use the tool. Don't be put off by using something just because you can't. You can YouTube it, you can do other things. You know, if you use something that ain't working, your body will feel it. So don't be put off using something because you don't know how, because that's what we used to do. And it's not healthy. It really isn't. Play and explore, trial and error, but gently, slowly and softly, making sure you're listening to your body because it has the answers, it knows. And this is as true of meditative techniques as it is of the proper use of a chainsaw. We like using them. Shh. We cannot expect to maximize its effectiveness and minimize its dangers until we learn all we can about it. The first thing to know is what the tool is used for. In this chapter, I will describe how active and passive meditation differ, how active meditation can increase our creativity, and this practice can help maintain good health. Practitioners of passive meditation become charged with energy by remaining quiet and receptive. Frequently, the first thing that happens as a result of this exercise is what humanistic psychologists have called peak experiences. That's page 3. I'm just going to read this highlighted bit. Meditation is the action of becoming a mediator between opposites. I think we got that down to T. No, not down to T yet, but some of us have. Oh, shush. Too much. Meditation is the action of becoming a mediator between opposites, between the above and the below, cosmos and man, and positive and negative. 44, double dose of perseverance, equaling environment, Bruce Lipton, Epigenetics, here we go. Both shallow and intercostal breathing, however, are characteristics of the beta brainwave state. Beta waves indicate, this was so good, beta waves indicated a lack of concentrated energy. We function in a beta, everyday life, waking day life is functioning in a beta, so anything below that's good. Beta is one of the deepest healing wavelengths, and that's what the whole body C and G tuning forks do. You can do them on your ears, either side, you know, even for just, not even 3 minutes, just like a minute to 3 minutes, depends how up you are to start with, and change sides, because that creates the binaural beat tone in frequency in the middle, and that will bring you into a state of meditation, into brave wavelengths that can take like half an hour to meditate. So if you do half an hour's meditation, you use them first, you're actually getting like a lot longer meditation. So these tools are like maximum output, minimum effort. Beta waves indicate a lack of concentrated energy. There is too much tension being produced by this limited breathing to receive and disperse the amount of oxygen inhaled. A more satisfactory pattern is dual breathing, which involves both the thorax and the diaphragm. By bringing the abdomen into play, we give the diaphragm more space to move downward during inhalation, allowing the lungs to fill themselves more fully. This begins to achieve our main objective, which is to make full use of all our capacities, physical, mental, and spiritual. When our lungs are thoroughly filled by each breath, even the most sensitive parts of our organism will receive prompt delivery of the energy they require in order to operate at their greatest potential. The breathing pattern that is most suitable for meditation is paradoxical breathing, which is mostly abdominal and slightly thoracic. When an individual breathing in this pattern is monitored for brain waves and muscle activity in the chest and abdomen, these two indicators become synchronized. The energy patterns relayed to the monitoring machines, the electroencephalograph and the electrocardiograph, by the electrodes on the head and body, are aligned, harmonized. Hence the sound healing course, aligning all your bodies, aligning all your fields, and you do it from your space of your own home. This type of breathing may be contrary to the way you think you should go about consciously increasing your intake. It is not enough to expand your chest to fill the lungs fully. The diaphragm has to be allowed to expand fully as well. And this can only be done by expanding the abdomen to make room for the expanded diaphragm. To begin paradoxical breathing, inhale deeply and voluntary pull in your abdomen. When you exhale, push it out again. That's the opposite that I was taught by someone. When you exhale, push it out again. To begin paradoxical breathing, inhale deeply and pull it in your abdomen. So what I do is breathe in, have a pause, breathe in, have a pause, because I can't do the full deep breath in. When you exhale, push it out again. This movement is contrary to normal abdominal breathing, which is good because it's changing the pattern, during which the abdomen appears to expand as the lower lungs fill with air. It takes conscious effort to reverse this normal pattern and breathe paradoxically, hence with the inward singing too. Next, begin a cycle of timed breaths. The first breath is characteristic of intercostal breathing. The intercostals are the muscles between your ribs, the ones that you eat if you eat rib cage, which dominates in the alpha state, with inhalation time equal to exhalation time. Mentally count the time for each movement. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold in the breath for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As you concentrate, your inhalation will quicken, leading to this new pattern. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Number for rebirth, made up of new beginnings and fish rush. The ability to extend the exhalation so much longer than the inhalation shows that the inhalation must be very deep. The more oxygen you are able to hold in after a quick intake, the slower and longer your exhalation can be. The final stage of timed breathing that must be accomplished and set as a pattern for meditation is inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. We're going to finish there. That was just a bonus bit. Start the quantum Gandhi ripple effect. Be the change you want to see in the world. But more importantly, if you believe that mental health kind of does come priority to physical health, unless it's been an extreme physical health history in the moment, and that's when the doctors obviously in the NHS is good. But if you have a long-term physical ailment or something, then you need your mental health, and the mental health system needs to change. So if you resonate or with any of this in any way, because you are getting live healing here, it's an online healing session basically. I'm meditating for hours before. I've been in permanent meditation basically since November. And I want to share the love, and I can't do it in the physical form. I can't do it in the physical form because people can't receive me, and I can't do it in the physical form because I can't receive a lot of them, because a lot of people's internal and external worlds don't align. And one of my gifts is I'm a feeler of other people's internal worlds. So if other people aren't aware of their internal world and I can feel it, I need to not say anything to them because they have to learn it on their own. But it means I can't be in their presence at the same time, because my body will react to it and act out. But yeah, share this stuff, please. I don't want you to. I don't want to be seen and heard. I hate this. But I need to be seen and heard. I need to be seen and heard to heal for the third of me that don't give a fuck, that want to help others, but I can't help others anymore. And this is the way that the meditation and my mind and my altars are creating a way to help heal others, by completely showing ourselves. No matter how hard that is. Because it's showing true authenticity and transparency with integrity. And dedicate all of this on everyone's highest good. But remember, I've got Ganesh. So we're going to put little obstacles in your way as well, but done with love, because we need those obstacles and we need those challenges to grow. And that's what this is, a mega challenge. So if I am doing this, please, all of you, play your little part. Start the Gandhi quantum ripple effect of being the change we want to see in the world by starting to change what we're comfortable with. Make ourselves uncomfortable. And let's start changing ourselves, and let's start changing the linear system thinking into circular system thinking. Changing mental health perspectives. Changing the way we care and share and talk and communicate with each other. But we can only do that by changing how we treat and care and communicate with ourselves. And it is so important, because it's the only way that the pain will leave the body, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, chemical, energetic. And believe me, it does work. Trying to smile, but it's all coming out. You're seeing it coming out. And it's a good thing. I feel the most balanced and connected I've ever felt inside, that I've ever felt. And I've found my voice and I'm using it. So please help me make it worthwhile that I'm using it, and help all those people out there that are suffering in silence, similar to my situation, that can't speak up. Share and care. Namaste, 2 parts gratitude, 1 part love, 2 GL, Shinto self-empowerment. If you've been watching this, or listening to this, things could start bubbling up for you. So be gentle with yourselves and patient with yourselves, and do whatever it is you need to do in that moment. Because remember, keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Trust yourself. You're exactly where you're meant to be, even if it doesn't feel like it. It will work out in the end. Seriously. Just start unconditionally loving and respecting yourself, and being compassionate and forgiving of yourself. And then you can be of others. Because when we judge others accidentally, even if it's silently in our internal world, what we're really doing is judging ourselves. And we don't want to be doing that. We want to love ourselves, give ourselves a hug, and do the figure of 8. That's great for toning the abdomen. Stop doing that now, stop doing that now. Hurt back, move. Bye everyone, gotta go do some stuff privately. Thank you for watching. We're okay.
by the way, we'll be okay. We're just going to do this in private. We're really doing okay with where we're at and what we have to go through. Bye. Namaste. Lots of love. 2 parts of gratitude. Shut up now, go. I can't figure it out. Yes.